Started. My name is Laura Sperry. I'm just helping out here from the library today. Thank you for joining us for the second session of the Mediterranean Way series. It's all about protein today. And we're so excited to bring this series to you in partnership with the Cooperative Extension Office. Like many other library programs, this series is made possible with the support of the Friends of the Library. And if you're interested, you can become a friend for $15 a year. And you'll get regular newsletters and early access to our annual book sale. Speaking of our annual book sale, if you're curious or interested, we have some bookmarks on that table near the door where you can get information about that. So today I'd like to welcome NC Cooperative Extension's Family and Consumer Sciences Agent, Erin Massey, right here, and she's going to be teaching us all about protein.
Well, don't clap yet. It might be really bad. Just like, wait. No, I'm joking. All of the recipes we try are tested in the Extension Test Kitchen at NC State University, so I know they're good before we try them. However, I do use my toddlers as the first test group, so nothing to worry about. Thanks for having me back. Thanks everybody for being here. It's like a warm hug to see all of your faces. I'm Erin Massey, registered dietitian and FCS agent for short, right across the street at the Extension office with the that beautiful garden that grew this year. That was on us. We used part of the produce in some of our summer camps. And we're doing an cooking with herb class coming up in October with Bart Renner, our ag agent. So lots of stuff going on in Extension. They keep me busy. I want to introduce, you might see Mindy Buford helping me out. She is my volunteer extraordinaire and retired nurse, and I do test a lot of my recipes on her as well. And then Steve Matadobra is our wonderful cameraman. He is focusing on me, so you don't need to be worried about not having camera-ready hair or anything, although you guys look fabulous. You don't need to worry about him getting you accidentally. We're filming these so that if we miss something, they can be readily available online to see what you missed or go over things, or how did she chop that up, or answer some of those questions. So to get rid of the anxiety, we're going to eat first. So, today's recipe, anybody want to tell me? What do you have in front of you? White bean hummus. What does that mean? What is hummus normally made with? Chickpeas. Does anybody not like chickpeas? Does anybody dislike chickpeas? Nobody. Wow. Well, this will give you an opportunity to try a different legume. Both beans, it's just some people don't like the strong aftertaste that comes with chickpeas, and this is an option to serve to those people at a Christmas party, or they're really quite affordable. Beans in general, canned, are quite affordable. So this is a great recipe. Hummus can be used in many ways. It can be used in a wrap. Has anybody ever used it as a dressing? Yeah, I heard yes. You mix it with a little water, and it can be your salad dressing, and you're getting a little bit of protein in there. Sort of like the theory of using Greek yogurt as a dressing. You're still getting protein. It's a little thicker. It's an excellent choice. So, before I get into this, raise your hand if you were in the class last week. Higher, raise the hands up. There we go. Okay, thank you. Wonderful, most of you. Okay, so I challenged you to make one recipe, or at least snoop on the Mediterranean website and see if there's something you might want to make. Does anybody up for the challenge? Did anybody try a recipe? You did. What did you try?
I tried the chicken egg roll.
Yeah?
Chicken egg roll bowl.
In a bowl?
And it was really good.
Wow, not even just okay, but really good.
It was very good. I do it again.
Okay.
And the biggest tip, I've never done this, they used ground chicken, but they said put a little olive oil, get your frying pan hot, and then pat the chicken down in the frying pan and leave it for 5 minutes. Don't touch it. And it crisps the bottom. It was really good.
So I'm going to repeat this for the camera, which is super awkward to all of us in the room, but so that somebody can hear us, everybody can hear us. So you tried egg roll in a bowl, and one of the big tips was when you're putting it in a large skillet to pat the chicken flat, and I imagine that helps it get extra crispy and increases the surface area. Okay, so that's one of the biggest new skills you learned, and it was very good. Thank you for sharing. Anybody else want to share a recipe they tried? Yes.
Well, I did the avocado salad.
Uh-huh.
It's an appetizer. And then the pasta with beans and spinach.
Yeah, what was that like? What was that? I haven't tried that one. Okay, pasta with beans is like, sounds a little questionable with textures, but they made it work. Okay.
I use gluten-free, just because I'm a gluten-free pasta. This is, what is it, the little screw noodles?
Okay. Fuselli is probably the.
With spinach and beans.
Okay. Wonderful. So you substituted gluten-free noodles. So any kind of diet can fit into this kind of med style of eating. And I think that's the point. We want to make it easy for everybody and anyone's needs, right? But still, it's about the dietary pattern. So let me stop talking and start cooking, you guys. All right. So we're going to have 3 cups of dried white beans. You can dry these. You can use dried beans. It's going to be more economical to use dried beans. It's also going to be space saving because they triple in size. But the thing about dried beans is it takes more time because you have to soak them the night before. Usually. I cheat a little bit, and sometimes I'll just put them in a crock pot and cook them low and slow for 14 to 16 hours while I sleep. Like while I'm prepping dinner, I'll put them in a crock pot with chicken broth, low sodium, and a can of Rotel for extra flavor, and I'll let it cook all night. Crock pots are designed to be on when you're not home. It's very, very safe, or else no one would do it. And so I let it cook overnight, and in the morning the house does smell like beans. That could be a plus or minus depending on the person. But then I have beans to use through my week and with virtually no prep other than putting them into the crock pot. So you can use dried or you can use canned. If you're going to use canned, 3 cans of beans, and you don't just put them directly from the can. You want to rinse them. You want to drain them and rinse them, which removes at least 30% of the salt if you're using canned. And then it recommends cooking them to make them, they do use the term mush, which I really don't like, but really soft, okay? So, if I was in my kitchen, this would be a much messier process, but now that you guys are watching me, I'm trying not to let beans get all over the table. Okay, so, all right. Then we're going to have our lemon juice, which is a ½ cup.
Scoot back your food processor, it's not quite enough.
Oh, okay. That's why I bring you, Mindy. Nobody else would tell me. Okay. All right. We're going to add, can you see it now? Yes. Woohoo! Olive oil. And when we talk about healthy fats, I will tell you how to identify the best olive oil and how to go shopping for one when we get there. I'm saving some of my secrets. And then we're going to do 2/3 cup of tahini. This is just the brand that Food Lion had. Tahini is kind of like the Mediterranean peanut butter. It is a nut butter, but it's made from seeds. Do we know what seeds they're made from? Roasted sesame seeds, right. Okay. And as with any natural nut or seed butter, it's going to separate. So I give this a big thorough shake when I first got it because you'll see that the oil is all separated at the top. Don't be scared of that. That's the reason people won't buy some of the natural peanut butters because they don't have the emulsifiers that keep it together. And that's just a choice. That's okay. But don't let it scare you. All right. We got 2/3 cup, and I made a mess. So I'll clean that up later. And then salt and pepper to taste. I found when I made this and I tested it on the new guy in the county office that about a teaspoon of pepper works well for the whole recipe and about 3/4 a teaspoon of salt. But that was just my preference. At home, you can lick your fingers regularly if you're not serving guests, or just don't tell them, just make it beforehand. And to taste truly means like, what is your flavor profile? Some people are going to prefer more salt, but the good thing about hummus is because of the tahini and the lemon, it kind of, that astringent kind of sense of taste that we have, where salt would normally be entirely what we rely on. Lemon and just tangy flavors kind of make up the difference for us. So when it says to taste your food before you give it to someone this time. Okay. All right. Missed anything? You guys got to tell me. You're my team today. Yes, after it's opened. All right. All right. I'm going to I'm adding just a little water so it's smooth. I think that was entirely operator error because of nerves, but that's okay. Thank you guys for hanging in there with me. All right. It does say to put this in a bowl and then add your tahini, which I did try yesterday, both ways, and I found that it made significantly more of a mess and more dishes. And being not a fan of dishes, I just put everything in the processor, and it had the same result. So you can go with what your heart says when you make this and which way you make it. You can also use a blender. Not everybody has a giant food processor. I'm going to add a little bit more of my water here. Okay. I think we're open for business now, you guys. You know, who likes hummus? Mindy, I need a taste tester.
Okay. Oh, pickle.
So I'm going to put some on a lid. And whoever's in the front gets to tell me if it needs more salt or pepper. You're lucky.
I have no taste.
You have no taste. Oh, that's you told me that. Shh, it'll be our secret.
I'm not the person you want.
Salt or pepper? No pepper? Good to you? Okay. Okay. You'd like more salt? That's why it's to taste. Okay. All right. I'm going to go with majority rule on this one. All right. All right.
I'll put you some little cups.
Okay. Do you
You want me to go ahead and hand the vegetables out?
Yes.
That's the only table that doesn't have.
Oh, so perfect. Worked out nicely. Okay. I guess I should add more salt to for you guys. Okay. How else can you use hummus besides using it as a dressing, besides using it as a wrap? A dip? Oh, that's a given. Yeah. Okay. What about making pasta and using it as your pasta sauce? Mm-hmm. That's true, especially on a sandwich. Yes, using hummus. We said in a wrap, but instead of mayonnaise on a vegetable sandwich to get your extra protein in is an excellent idea. All right. You're welcome.
Thank you.
And Mindy is passing out vegetables.
Thank you.
Laura, could we have an extra hand? We have 3 trays of vegetables in there. Okay. the great thing about having a sous chef. This will disappear while I talk to you guys. Okay. Alrighty. I'm gonna switch our cord over to the other side. No, not yet. Ta-da! Okay. All right. So last session we talked about why go med, like why even follow the Mediterranean diet. And we explored specific principles. Eat more fruits and vegetables. Most healthcare providers would agree that's a change you should make. Eating whole grains and making most of your grains whole when possible. Eating lots of legumes. Eating fish 2 to 3 times a week if possible. Snacking on nuts and seeds. Choosing fats that are liquid at room temperature. Eating less salt and flavoring foods with more spices and fresh herbs. And if you choose to drink, doing so in moderation. Exercising frequently. And the pure enjoyment of food and your environment and being mindful when you choose to eat. And slowly eliminating or just eating less added sugar. And why is the med way of eating so popular and so sustainable? Because it's easy. If you've tried any of those recipes online yet, you'll see that they don't have 20, 25 ingredients, that they use cooking techniques that most individuals can do. It's delicious, probably because I do have the advantage of med uses the test kitchen at NC State, so it's not just, what is it? What's that? The first thing that comes up is like recipes.com, and like Nancy from down the street added a pound cake recipe that substitutes like applesauce and uses no eggs, and she's like, all right, this seems good, and then you try it, and then like you wish you had practiced before you took it to the neighbor's house. Yeah, so these are tested recipes, and then it's satisfying. And what was the one macronutrient, surprisingly, that makes Mediterranean style of eating more satisfying that we talked about that might have surprised you? Somebody said it. Fat, olive oil, fat, yeah. We need a little fat in our diet, and it goes a long way to keep us satisfied, and it's protective of our brain and our eyes and our heart. So over the next 4 weeks, we're going to go through the 7-step process of tiny changes you can make to incorporate the med pattern of eating into your own lifestyle. And today we start with the first one, which is changing up your protein. So changing your protein, step 1. It's going to be primary plant-based foods, surprise, surprise. Replacing some of the meat, not all of the meat, with beans and legumes. Somebody used this term yesterday when I was talking to them. They said plant forward. And I think that's very appropriate. We want to be eating mostly plants. And that makes sense with all the health outcomes that we see. Now, meat does have its place in the diet, and we'll talk about that today. But eating mostly plants is key to longevity. I also hear as a dietitian the misconception that plant-based automatically means vegan or vegetarian. And you'll see a lot of plant-based classes that are offering vegan or vegetarian cooking. And while that does have its place in a plant-based diet, plant-based didn't originally mean vegan or vegetarian. So, and it's up to the individual what choices they make, but you can have a healthy lifestyle, live a healthy lifestyle by incorporating a little bit of meat, but mostly plants. And the other way is true. If you want to be vegetarian, you're limiting your saturated fat the same way. That can be a very healthy lifestyle as well. Just depends on your choices and your preferences. So, talking about eating meats, the recommendation is to eat fish and seafood at least 3 times a week, which is more difficult for us, being in the mountains, getting it fresh, certainly. But you go to Charlotte, and you're getting the same fish that's frozen that we're being offered here in the grocery store. So that's something to think about. It can also be more affordable. Now, what eating fish What it does not mean is eating fried fish. Fried fish does not count as that 2 to 3 fish total a week, because when you fry things, you're changing the fats because you're frying at high temperatures. You're adding way more oil than you need. Those oils are going through a process called beta oxidation, getting super hot, and then you're eating trans fat, which is even worse than saturated fat. So frying is not optimal for our fish. Maybe for flavor, maybe it adds to that enjoyment component that we see, but it's not ideal as a regular pattern of intake. We want to eat white meat poultry, like turkey and chicken, at least twice a week, and limit red meat. And when we do choose to have red meat, if you really enjoy that steak, make sure you're doing so with lean proteins whenever possible. So picking the lean loin of the animal, part of the animal that's moving, and not the ribeye.
The dark meat of the turkey or the chicken, is that, it's higher in fat, is that not an optimal choice?
It's not recommended, and you'll see that, especially if you look at this page on the continuum. Med Instead of Meds is not recommending that we do dark meat because of the fat percentage at this time.
Question.
Ah,
Getting back to the fish, how about the canned fish, like sardines or mackerel?
excellent question. We'll get there. We'll get there. That's a really good one, though. All right, so make swaps. So a lot of you'll see in these sessions is talking about med flips. So how can you not eliminate and get rid of and, oh, I can't have that, and so you concentrate on it and want it more, but what can you eat more of? So we're going to limit beef, pork, lamb. So pork is not the other white meat. I hear this from Marianne in my office every day. She tries to argue with me because she likes pork. She's like, well, it used to be advertised. I was like, well, nutrition gets a lot of flack for, oh, well, that's changed. Well, when you look at plant science, what's changed? Information changes all the time, which is why we have places like the library that can give us updates and educate us on what has changed. Pork, although it is technically white, is not, even goes into the red meat category nutritionally, which I get that people can't wrap their mind around that when they've been taught elsewise. But it is higher in saturated fat. So we want to limit that. We want to limit or eliminate highly processed meat. So what are your highly processed meats? Lunch meat. I know, so easy to put in a lunch box. I have a charcuterie board with. But more specifically, like salami, bologna, I know I'm making somebody sad. Sausage, bacon, those highly processed meats are going to be usually high in saturated fats, and most of them, if not all, are super high in salt. And there's a reason for that. Meat has protein. It's a low acid food. It's a high moisture content food, which are already three things that make it very desirable for bacteria. And so they add salt so that it can last longer than a couple days. And there's not much way around that yet. Increase your fish and seafood, increase your plant protein, and you can still have dairy and eggs. I couldn't have cheese. You guys, I wouldn't be so happy. Okay, so the protein choice continuum. You have a picture of this on your handout, and if you lose that piece of paper, you won't be allowed back in to Med Instead of Meds now. It's okay. You can ask me again, or you can watch the video, right, Steve? Yeah, okay. So eat less of this, eat more of this, right? So on the right-hand side, you're going to see more salt, more saturated fat. Versus on the left-hand side, there's more fiber and more healthy fats, and they also tend to be lower calorie, just a side effect. So your processed meats, including bacon, which I have heard deemed like the glitter of the food world, is, and it should stay that way. It can be the glitter, but it should not be the main star component of a meal. And then your higher fat meats, like a ribeye, I'm sorry, are going to be on that side. It doesn't mean never have this ever again. When we talk about the med way of eating, we're talking about a pattern of eating that you do most often, right? Higher fat dairy is on this side. So some people will say to me like, oh, but I am eating whole fat dairy, so it's a better choice. I said, that's a okay choice, if weight gain is a priority, or if you like the taste of it. I don't snicker at that, but that's true. I mean, some people, they do want to gain weight, and I see those people too, and that would be a better choice for them. But most of our population is going to be all on this side. Dark meat, poultry is there, still an okay choice. Lean red meat, and the term meat is different from poultry, but this is going to be your steak, so your cow, your pork, your lamb. Eggs and your fat-free dairy are kind of closer to the middle. So eggs are actually considered a medium fat protein, although they contain cholesterol. Oh, I'm getting off topic. That's not as big as an issue as it used to be. Catch me on the flip side if you have questions about that. White meat, poultry, your fish and your seafood, which they're saying at least eat 2 to 3 times a week. And then your beans and legumes have plentiful of. Okay. All right. Is there a healthier cheese?
As opposed to a worse cheese, is there a better cheese?
Yes and no, but I always say, depending on what your goal is, a lower fat cheese are going to be like the mozzarella, which has been strained, and then it also tends to be a lower sodium choice. So I'm always saying, if you want a nice, gooey, stretchy grilled cheese, priorities, try the mozzarellas.
What about tofu and tempeh? I know you should know that.
So I imagine that would be closer to the plant-based foods. I didn't realize that until now, but that's a good point. That would be a plant-based choice, because tofu comes from soybeans, so it fits into the beans, nuts, and seeds category. But not many people, if they're not doing that already, would think of that. So that's a good highlight. Mm-hmm.
So you would recommend low-fat milk, no-fat milk versus whole milk?
That's correct, depending on a person's goal. I'm supposed to be generalizing nutrition for everyone. So most of the population, yes, low-fat milk would be ideal. All right, so limiting meat. Recommending no more than 2 to 3 times per month. My husband would be very sad if he saw this. And less is even better. And that serving size is important too. It doesn't mean it's the first of the month, I'm going to go get a ribeye the size of my head and it's healthy. No, so a serving size is 4 to 6 ounces. So raise your hand in the air. Right? I see nobody. Raise your hand in the air. Put your fingers down. Put your thumb in. That palm size, that's about the protein you should be eating per meal. So for me, that's like 3 ounces. I'm 5'2". For most people, it's going to be around 4 to 6 ounces. To give you, so that doesn't seem like a lot, right? But if you do ounces to grams, which is normally what we calculate in, so 7 grams per ounce is standard. So 7 times 6, that's 42 grams of protein just in the meat at that meal. That's a lot. Like, that'd be a guy like 6'2" and higher should be eating like 42 grams a meal. Because research shows us typically, most people, unless they're bodybuilders and breaking down muscle at a higher rate, they can only digest around 44 grams of protein in a sitting, which is about 4 to 6 hours. And then the kidneys can't process it, and you pee out the rest, and that's just some really expensive protein powder that people are packing in. So you really don't need much more protein than that. And it just makes sense to get the rest of your calories and fullness from vegetables and some starch. We're not going to exclude carbs, people. That would be sad. But as far as protein, there you go. There you have it. Questions? Oh, yeah.
I have 2 questions. On the fish, is white albacore and water can acceptable?
Yes.
Okay.
Well,
Can you tell us the negative for dairy fat?
the negative of dairy fat, it's to eliminate saturated fat, the same fat that you would find in meat because it's an animal-based food. Good question. All right, but I want a juicy burger that's like the size of my head. So how do you do that? You can bulk it with vegetables is one of the recommendations. And mushrooms, if you like mushrooms, maybe even if you don't, try this recipe anyways and get back to me. Mushrooms have a high amount of content called umami, which is we can only sense like 5 things on our tongue. And umami is also a Japanese word for savory, so it's also in Parmesan cheese, it's also in soy products, but it's in a lot of meat-based foods. It's also, MSG is one of the highest things in this savory compound, and mushrooms contain a high amount of it. And that's why you see in a lot of vegan and vegetarian dishes, they substitute mushrooms. Well, in this recipe, they're recommending to pair your 4 ounces or 6 ounces of beef with mushrooms to have that same savory profile, plus mushrooms are high in water content, so it's gonna make it juicy. And there's a burger on one side and then this beef tacos on the other. I've actually done this recipe at the farmer's market, and people who didn't know there were mushrooms in there because they didn't read were like, this is great. And then they try it and they're like, it's okay now. But it was very popular. I think I gave away 76 samples of mushroom beef tacos for Beef Month. So, with lean beef. All right. Deli meat. Now this one breaks my heart a little bit because I could eat, I'm not going to say my weight, but I could eat a lot of honey turkey, sliced deli turkey. The lower sodium ones are harder to find, but that would be the best choice if you're getting lean deli meat as part of your diet. It can still be heart healthy if it's low sodium, but they're finding more and more links to it being inflammatory, especially some of the other cuts of meats like salami and bologna and hot dogs and things made with different parts of the animal. We just know we're having more science, research shows us inflammatory markers. So it's best to limit it when you can and use less bacon in recipes, yes. Americanized bacon is more fat than it is the meat. If you've ever had bacon in other countries, it's what we call ham. But we keep it really thin and have fat so we can get really crispy, which we've grown accustomed to. So if a recipe calls for it, sure, you could use turkey bacon, which is still going to be kind of high in salt. You could use my favorite, which is chicken bacon, which by the dietary manual meets parameters for a cardiac diet, but there's only like 1 brand in existence if you guys have tried chicken bacon. And it gets crunchy in the microwave, but we need to limit it. But I think freezing bacon and using it 1 piece at a time would take a lot of effort. Think about a packet of bacon. Think about the bacon ice cube that's going to form in your freezer if you don't separate it 1 piece at a time. Sure, you could go through and put wax paper, but I'd say if you need it for a recipe, and it's not that great anyways for us, buy a little at a time, use it for the recipe, and then don't worry about the ice cube bacon in your freezer. If you have to, or leave it out. Choose white meat poultry often, at least twice a week if you are eating meat. A good hack with meal prep and chicken is I like to cook a bunch at a time in my crock pot, and so it's really tender, and shred it and not flavor it with anything other than low sodium chicken broth. And then I can use it with different flavor profiles throughout the week. I can make chicken salad for my husband. I can set it on top of some couscous and mixed vegetables the first night. It's very versatile throughout your week if you do not flavor it. And you can get a lot done at once, especially if you buy them in a big pack, and then you can save money. Another thing we talk about is eating fish, which can be quite difficult for some. I know some healthcare professionals that just do not like fish, and that's fair. You don't like what you don't like, and that's okay. But there are different ways to have fish than the traditional plank salmon, or the first fish people usually try is tilapia because it's cheaper, and it changes their views of fish forever. Has anybody ever had tilapia and know what I'm talking about? If you're talking about what you think, imagine if you've never had salmon, and you try tilapia, and like, this is what fish tastes like. It could ruin fish forever. But some fresh tilapia can be really good if seasoned correctly. Yeah.
Talk about mercury.
I will. I'm very long-winded. Okay. All right, so having it other than in just a plank, right? You can make it in this website has burgers, has a basil shrimp and tomato pasta with feta, which I'm actually going to be trying in a What's Cookin' Transylvania cooking class in October. And then my favorite way to eat them is in tacos, because almost anything can go inside a taco. All right, so some common questions about fish. Do I have to eat it? No, you don't. Fish is expensive. What are some alternatives? What about mercury? Is farm-raised fish okay? So I believe your question was about using canned. Actually, some of the canned fishes are higher in calcium than a lot of other products. It's pretty high. I can't remember the exact number of milligrams. But fish in canned goods is actually very high in calcium. Not just a little high, it's very high. Because why? Yeah, they grind up the bones, which is like kind of scary to think about, but we need that. It's very good for us. So for cost efficiency, eating salmon out of a can or eating tuna out of a can in water or in olive oil are the best choices. You can also shop sales. So I go to Sam's Club every 3 months, and we will stock up on cans of tuna and eat it throughout the month. And that is the most economical choice for us if you don't get tired of tuna. Yeah. All right. What about mercury? So we shouldn't let the fear of mercury get between us and eating fish. There's actually less of a risk here in the United States than other countries. So mercury is in our environment, and then when it's consumed by small fish, then another big fish comes along and eats the small fish, and then another bigger fish comes along and eats basically all of those fish, and it builds up. And there's a name for that. It's called bioaccumulation. That's a test question. So bioaccumulation is the bigger fish have more mercury. And so the recommendation, if you're concerned about mercury, is to eat less of these large fish. And you'll notice that your albacore tuna is one of those big fish. That means if you're worried about mercury, don't eat 2 to 3 servings every week of just albacore tuna. Mix it up. Have it less frequently. But a lot of the readily available fish and cost-efficient ones are actually the low mercury varieties. Salmon's right there. Shrimp, oysters, flounder, scallops, cod, crab, sardines, anchovies. I've never had croaker, but canned chunk light tuna. So a lot of our readily available fish are actually in very,
What about herring? Let's see them.
I don't see herring up there. That does come in a can. And it is readily available.
And I've always heard herring was one of the better ones over, so I don't know.
Let me ask,
Herring's a cold water fish.
let me look into it first and look on where it stacks up,
Okay,
because we'll have access to that being an extension agent.
okay,
I'll write that one. Can you write that down?
I will.
Okay. All right. So, but certain populations do need to be mindful of this. If you know anybody who's pregnant, or if you know any small children, why do we worry about mercury in those populations? Because their brains are still developing. And that's where mercury can be an issue. So, those populations are recommended that they avoid the high mercury fish that you see above, which are not the ones that are most readily available. Like, I think as a pregnant woman, I would have had to go out of my way to find a shark in Transylvania County. King mackerel is really delicious, but I just knew not to eat that. Raw fish in general, it says, like, avoid that. Like, definitely not. Obviously, there's more risk with other contaminants and toxicity when you're pregnant. And you have to know that, and that's why education of that population is important. Small children, too, should just not eat large amount of these fish, and I'd say avoid them if possible. But it doesn't mean not to have any fish, because we know that the fats in those fish are great, in fish in general, are great for developing fetuses, especially DHA. So eating, I believe it's 2 to 3 servings of light tuna fish is recommended for pregnant women, up to that amount of servings. So that in itself is a good choice, but not the higher mercury one. What about farm-raised or wild-caught? Now, I'm going to be transparent and say my views as a dietitian in the hospital are different from what NC State says. Why? Because they probably have more information than I do. 'Cause we were told, oh, the wild-caught ones are going to be higher in omega-3s. And that may be true. But you can't verify, if you're out in the wilderness, what that one fish has been exposed to. Do you have a radioactive fish that you're eating and you don't know? You don't know what pollutants it came in contact with versus farm-raised. Yes, the content of omega-3s might be a little bit lower, but you know if you have a good source, you should know the practices that farmer is practicing. And if ever in doubt, you can go to seafoodwatch.org. It's a real thing. Seafoodwatch.org, and they rate the sources of fish. Thoughts? Questions? Because it's hard to make one sweeping statement because it's all about what product exactly you're eating.
Tell me the difference between Atlantic and Pacific salmon. I presumed that Atlantic was farm-raised. Am I wrong?
I would say it's where they're from, but I can't verify it. I haven't thought hard enough about that. Probably the location of where they're taken from. But that's an easy thing for me to find out. Does anybody know? No? Okay. Kinds of salmon. That's true. When you go to Aldi's, there's multiple kinds you can buy. Maybe we should do a taste test and see if they taste any different. And just blindfold somebody and be like, tell me which one it is. No, I'll figure that out. All right, so increasing plant protein. Increasing your plant protein. I'm going to say it, some guys in particular have a harder time letting go of meat. I don't know why that is. That is a stereotype. I know it. And some men don't have an issue with this at all. But a lot of male patients I run into are like, I'm not eating beans. Like, where's the meat? That's what I hear. They lay down a plate and they're like, where is the meat? And we're trying to change that, right? Because these are so good for us. We can't oversell the beans. Beans are just so good for our body. They're lower in calories. They're higher in fiber. They're a great source of iron. They're even, if you look scale to scale and you don't look at digestion, apples to apples, they're even higher in iron than meat is. And if you pair them with vitamin C, you can absorb more of that iron. So there's tricks to optimal digestion of plant-based foods, but overall, they have more bang for your buck. One of the biggest things, I used to teach cardiac rehab, and I heard from a patient say, I've started eating plant-based, and everything is mushy. And at first, I was like, yeah, I can see that. And the more I've been cooking with plant-based foods in my profession, I realize if you overcook anything except meat, it'll be mushy. What happens to meat when you overcook it? It gets chewier, it gets harder. But plants aren't that way, right? So you have to cook it just the right amount of time, which you could arguably say takes more skill. And you can't eat plant the exact same way and get the same kind of texture outcome. Certain ones you need to roast, certain ones you roast longer times than others because they're starchier and have to be cooked more. Like there's all of this, there's an amount of skill that goes into cooking. So I say it's not the plant that you don't like, it's how it was prepared. So how can we start to add more plants in our diet, beans and legumes specifically? And these are all med recipes that you can go online and look for. Lentils with cumin vinaigrette is very good. There's a tiny piece of salmon over top of this, and As that salmon cooks, some of its juices are going to go into that lentil dish, making it very satisfying and warming and great for winter, because winter is coming. Quinoa pinto bean burger, those freeze great, so it is time consuming to make any kind of patty if you've made any patties from scratch, but this will actually freeze and you can use for another time in big batches. So if you use a lot of beans in the crock pot method or pressure cooker, you can make a bunch at a time. It could be a family event. And then today we tried our white bean hummus. All right, so cooking beans. It's okay to use canned beans if in a pinch. Okay, it's less expensive to buy dried in the bag. But if you don't have the time, or if they're on sale, get the ones in the can. Now, some of them will say low sodium. Low sodium, by definition, is less than 140 milligrams per serving. Some of them, if they say lower sodium or less salt, that just means they have less salt than the original product, which wouldn't be low sodium at all. However, any kind of beans you get, you can knock off about 30% of the sodium just by rinsing them, draining and rinsing. Does anybody use a pressure cooker to cook beans? You do, okay. You have a slow cooker? Good, I think that's a great way to do it, and you don't have to stand over a stove. Notice none of these pictures have just like the stovetop pot, because people have lives now, and they don't have to stand over it and watch it. Okay, what about, that's another one. Oh, I don't eat beans because of the gas. Well, most of the compounds that ferment in your digestive system that are going to produce most of the gas, not all of the gas, are actually water soluble. So if you soak your beans and then you drain off the bean juice, that's going to get rid of a lot of those gassy compounds in general. Okay? Or if it comes in a can, if you don't eat the bean juice, that's going to get rid of a lot of those compounds too. Making sure that you're chewing well. Be amazed at the people who don't chew their food. Like there's theories related to digestion that talk about how if you increase the surface area and actually are mindful of what you're eating and chew more frequently, like more chews per second, you actually digest better. And there are scientific, sounds like it's simple, but there are like theories around chewing well and digestion. Another thing that I see is people try to add fiber too fast, like, oh, I'm on a plant-based diet, or I'm going to add more fiber, or I'm going to eat healthy this week, and then they have tummy troubles. Now, that could always be something else, but adding too much fiber too quick is a real thing. It's not food poisoning. Your body sometimes has to get used to digesting a higher fiber load. And if you do this really quickly and you don't add water, water is key for breaking down, for emulsifying everything and moving things around and going through your intestines without causing more pain. So drink enough water, add them slowly. Right? There's also specific seasonings that help with digestion. Ginger is one of them. Cumin is another. These are actually 3 other seasonings that I learned today. Kombu, which is a Japanese, it's a sea vegetable. It's a plant that's ground up. Epazote is a Mexican herb that has been proven to help ease digestion. It's very pungent, and I can't do it. Hey, what? Ajwan. We had a meeting before just on these herbs. Okay, so it is it's a seed, sort of like I can see it in my head, but I don't see the name of it. It's like when cilantro goes to seed. It looks like that, ground up. It is an Indian spice, actually. Have I seen these in the grocery store? No, because I wasn't looking for them. But how about we go on a hunt this week and see if we see it. I'm not saying buy it. If you identify any of these spices in any of our markets in Transylvania County, you let me know, because it's on my list of to-dos to try it out. Okay. All right, so, and I already said rinsing well. All right, so now what? So now what? How do you incorporate these? Like, all right, you have this massive amount of beans in your fridge or in your pantry because you're like, she said to eat more beans, I'm going to do it. You made the first steps. Now what? Add them into salads. Like, if you're having rice, you have that can of beans, that's an opportunity for more flavor, more fiber, it's a, I was going to say more satiating, but more filling of fullness after dinner. If you don't just have beans, you don't just have quinoa, add some quinoa with a little bit of beans sprinkled in there. Beans and rice bowls are a great solid complementary protein for starting a meal. Build on top of that. Add onions, add peppers, add mushrooms, add corn. Add, anybody? Hide a jalapeno in there and don't tell anybody. Anyone? No? Okay. Using them in hummus, now that we've experienced the joy of white bean hummus, you can really use any bean to make hummus if you don't have chickpeas on hand. Put them in burritos, put them in tacos. Like I said, anything goes in a taco. We do a lot of black bean quesadillas because I miscounted how much my toddlers would eat, and so there's always a can of beans and some leftover wheat tortilla, and sometimes we'll do a lot of bean tacos with whatever vegetables are in there. They can just be a side dish. You tried the bean and gluten-free pasta the other day. Last night, Jameson's been wanting spaghetti, but I didn't have any meatballs. I didn't have any turkey meatballs, and I didn't want to make any up. It's like, what do? Well, I had beans. We had pinto beans as the side dish, which also served as the protein. And I was questioning that decision at first when I was looking at it on the stove. Like, how are these textures going to be side by side? But it was actually pretty good. And without it, if we had just had spaghetti, I know they would have been hungry in an hour or two. So use what you have. And then bean soup, because winter is around the corner, which means soup season. Okay. What about dairy, egg, and eggs? So we talked about the low-fat choices being optimal, and eating cheese in smaller amounts, and choosing fat-free milk in smaller amounts. So what that means, we need about 3 to 4 cups a day as we age, as calcium needs increase because our calcium absorption rate decreases. So we can't effectively absorb it as well as we once did. So we need more of it. And when you're doing that, I like to point out the difference in calories between fat-free milk and full-fat milk. So if not a glass, a cup of fat-free milk is going to be about 100 calories. A cup of full-fat milk is going to be about 160 calories. That doesn't seem like a big difference if you have a cup. But if you're drinking that with meals, and you have a glass, not a cup, which could be 16 ounces, you now have over 500 calories in milk that you're consuming if you have 2 glasses of those, right? Versus 400 calories, which is like still pretty high if you're having a glass, not a cup, at a meal. But the difference between those could be the difference in having an extra snack. So drinking your calories is a choice we have to be cognizant of because it's not the same as water. And you're getting most of that just from fat, so that could be an easy change. Then cheese in small amounts. So you mentioned, like, what is the best cheese? And I say mozzarella is pretty low in saturated fat, but sometimes you really want to taste the cheese. And when you're doing medium fat cheddars, you find that you might have to use more of it to get more of an impact of flavor. Versus if you go to the fancy cheese section of the grocery store and you get a really strong Parmesan, you can use a little bit of it and enhance the flavor tremendously. And then, being a fermented cheese, it's going to last longer in your fridge, and you can use it again and impress all your friends next time you cook, just with a little bit. And you're getting much less saturated fat when you do that. And then eggs are up here. And the current research supports 7 eggs a day, up to 7 eggs a day, a week. Yeah, that's a lot of eggs. Up to 7 eggs a week, which is 1 a day, does not cause a cardiac event. So that's like 1 a day. And I'd have clients that would be like, well, I want to eat a 4-egg omelet. I was like, well, you eat your 4-egg omelet. I said, but don't eat a 4-egg omelet every day. Or use egg whites in place, use carton egg whites in place of some of those yolks, because we're really talking about 7 yolks in a week, because the yolk is where the majority of the saturated fat is. Both parts of the egg are beneficial to us, but we know in terms of fat intake and the right kinds of fats that we can have much more egg whites than we can have of yolk. And if you want the flavor and the color, mix them together. Okay, I am going over time because I talked too much, you guys. I apologize. I did practice, so this would be faster. The last thing I want to touch on is effectively planning our meals. And being mindful when we're making choices that we're making sure to meet all of our food groups. We did talk about protein today, but protein is only one food group. We're going to talk about the rest as we go through the next month. But making sure to hit either a whole grain or a starchy vegetable. Making sure to meet our healthy protein, making most of our plate non-starchy vegetables. So when this says vegetables, it is focusing on non-starchy vegetables. And then adding a little bit of fruits in there for sweetness. Does your meal always have to have fruits in it? No, but it can. So if this isn't fruits, the whole half should be non-starchy vegetables, ideally. So making sure when you're planning the meal, don't just plan the protein, but think about other ways to pair that. Another thing is planning for leftovers. We don't always think about what's going to be in the fridge afterwards or how much we're going to eat. So if you plan for leftovers, you don't have to cook every night. And this can even be like using part of your leftovers in another meal. It doesn't have to be eating the same meal multiple times. So if you prep a bunch of vegetables and you cook half of them for the stir fry, you can use the other half that you've already cut up in another recipe. Organize your pantry, refrigerator, and freezer so you can see those things. Don't let those bean patties that you made get buried in the deep freezer and then find them years later. Yeah. So next week we are going to explore another topic, which I don't really know. Do you know what the next one is? Oh, I know what it is. It's fats. We're going to talk about swapping your fats more in depth because we're going to be sampling olive oil deviled eggs, which are perfect in time for the holidays to surprise everybody with a healthier alternative to using mayonnaise. And we'll see how everybody likes it. I talked too much and I went over time, but I want to thank you guys. And if you have questions, please feel free to come up and ask them.